As we get further into the offseason and teams and rosters are starting to shake out, I've been asked by some, so what's going to happen with Ayo Dosunmu? Nearly 3 weeks since free agency began, and while Ayo has been extended a qualifying offer from the Bulls, he is yet to sign that qualifying offer and is yet to receive any offer sheets from another team in the association, which for Ayo, a young player, talented despite having a lot of flaws, you would have thought he would at least receive some interest from teams around the league, but so far, that hasn't been the case. So in this video, let's talk about what could potentially happen with Ayo as it relates to his restricted free agency and what the most likely outcome will be. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, as I mentioned, the Bulls extended Ayo a qualifying offer to make him a restricted free agent, meaning he's going to be able to get offers from other teams around the NBA, but the Bulls have the ability to match any offer sheet in order to retain him. His qualifying offer is set at $5.2 million, which would be a one-year deal, and then he would become an unrestricted free agent thereafter. And while yes, that's not the type of deal a player at his age would be looking for, something longer and more lucrative is what you would want to see coming off your rookie contract, but it's still considerably more than Ayo made last season, where he just made under $1 million. Now, what's the holdup, you might ask? Because the Bulls also extended Coby a qualifying offer at the same time they did for Ayo, and then they came to an agreement on an extension of 3 years, $40 million within the first hour of free agency beginning. Is there a reason the Bulls haven't worked with Ayo on a longer-term extension like they did with Coby? Well, a couple things. One, while Ayo, yes, did not have so great of a year, he struggled in being that starting point guard to fill in for Lonzo. His shot was just off all of last year, but even that aside, I still think Ayo is a talented player with upside because of his work ethic and strong play on defense, and he's shown some flashes of having potential on offense as well. Had some big plays in the clutch for the Bulls last year, including that game winner in Atlanta. But as good as Ayo is or could be, the Bulls had a bigger need in someone like Coby White. Not only did Coby improve a lot of aspects of his game last year, at the end of the day, the Bulls still need threats from shooting from outside. And while Coby has been inconsistent as a shooter throughout his career, really, he's still someone defenses have to respect if he's hanging out on the perimeter, because he can heat up in a hurry, and he's improved his handles and hesitation on the pump fake and driving to the basket that he's enough to draw defenses away from doubling up guys like DeMar and Zach, a floor spacer and scoring spark off the bench. Ayo is not that. While good, he doesn't fit the needs of the Bulls roster as much as someone like Coby White, at least in their immediate needs anyway. So that's why they had to prioritize Coby, and it's why he was one of the first free agents to sign a deal this offseason. Now, given all the other moves the Bulls made in free agency after this signing in Javon Carter and Torrey Craig, and of course even before that in re-signing Vucevic, the Bulls now, as we had discussed in prior videos, have very little cap space to work with before going into the tax. If you include Ayo on his qualifying offer at $5.2 million on the books, the Bulls have around $3.3 million in tax space. So even if the Bulls wanted to give Ayo a better offer or a longer-term deal, they really can't because they have such little money to spend. Again, if they want to stay under the tax, which we know that they do. But little money to spend while also filling out the remaining 2 roster spots. So in a way, really the best case for the Bulls if they want to retain Ayo is he doesn't get that many great offers, or any at all for that matter, and he just signs the qualifying offer, and then the Bulls have the ability to sign a couple more players to vet min deals to complete the roster. If Ayo actually gets a bigger offer sheet, say it's even something like 2 years, $14 million, which still it's low, I know, but $7 million a year compared to $5.2 million, the Bulls are dangerously close to the tax without being able to offer min deals for their last 2 roster spots, or say he even gets something closer to $8 million or $9 million a year, which I don't think he would, but for argument's sake, if he did, the Bulls wouldn't even be able to match at that point unless they want to go into the tax, and then they would lose Ayo for nothing. So the reason I think this is taking a while and dragging out a bit is, one, I think a lot of teams are waiting to see what happens to Damian Lillard or even James Harden to see how they plan the rest of their roster after those trades are completed, and the Bulls have been linked to trade rumors as a third team in a deal for Damian Lillard. But that aside, part of the reason it's taking so long is because it's kind of just a waiting game at this point. The Bulls know they really don't want to offer him more than the qualifying offer, or they can't anyway. I'm sure Ayo is looking for a more longer-term guaranteed deal, but because most teams have already filled out their roster, there aren't a lot of teams who can offer him more than $5 million a year. And so it's likely Ayo is trying to explore all of his options to go out and get an offer to then hand to the Bulls and say, match it. And there are still some teams with cap space. I mean, you look at teams like the Detroit Pistons, Orlando Magic, Charlotte Hornets. I think even the Rockets and Spurs still have some space, but none of these teams really need guards at this point. They're already pretty guard heavy as it is, so offering Ayo more than $5 million is not going to be something they're going to be willing to do with their remaining cap space. Now, what do I think will ultimately happen with Ayo? Nothing really groundbreaking here, and I'm sure it's not a surprise to anybody, but I think it will drag out for a few more weeks, and Ayo will eventually have to come to terms in agreeing to the qualifying offer that the Bulls are giving him at $5.2 million. My hope is that even if Ayo does receive a slightly better offer with, say, 2 years instead of 1, instead of taking that, he says, nah, I'm going to play on this 1-year deal, bust my ass, show what I can do, have a breakout season, and then secure an even bigger bag as an unrestricted free agent the following offseason. For a lot of players, that works for them, and they end up getting more guaranteed money over time by betting on themselves playing on a qualifying offer. I mean, these guys who are coming off rookie contracts are so young, still so much potential and development to be realized that all it takes is to have one breakout season in a contract year to get a fat contract. Not saying that that's going to happen with Ayo, although I'd love to see him have a breakout year. Really, I would love to see any of the Bulls' young players have a breakout year. But more so saying I'm hoping that's the mindset coming from Ayo when approaching his restricted free agency. I would love to see Ayo come back, would love for the Bulls to keep him because I do still have hopes that he can be an impactful player on this team, and that last season was just a sophomore slump that was hopefully isolated and not something we'll see for the rest of his career. I would love to hear what you guys think though. What do you think will ultimately happen with Ayo? Does he stay or go? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.